How much do you know about reduction? Most people say that reduction is a way to reduce big cubes into a 3x3 so you can just solve it like a 3x3. However, there's actually way more to reduction than that, and in this video I'll be explaining the iceberg of big cube reduction methods. This video was sponsored by thecubicle.com. You can buy all of these wonderful puzzles from thecubicle.com using discount code Blobinati to save 5% off of your order. But first up, what is a big cube? Well, a big cube is any cube where the size is greater than 3. So 3x3 and 2x2, these are small cubes, I guess, so get them out of here. We're not going to be talking about those in this video. So big cubes is 4x4 and upwards to infinity technically. I guess you could call those like humongous cubes if they're that big. Next up, what is reduction exactly? Well, reduction isn't necessarily turning big cubes into a 3x3. You can group the layers into other ways. Most people who have tried to solve a 4x4 have thought in their brain, hey, what if I reduce this into a 2x2? Because you can turn the layers in groups of 2, and this is a valid method, 4x4 to 2x2 reduction. So I guess the formal definition of reduction would be reducing an n by n by n puzzle into an m by m by m, where m is smaller than n. And this always involves grouping layers together. So for reducing into a 3x3, you're always going to group middle layers together to reduce into a 3x3. And for reducing into a 2x2 on this 4x4, you would reduce 2 layers on the outer layers together to group them into a 2x2. So the method that I'm going to be calling standard reduction is reducing any n by n cube into 3x3x3 by grouping all the middle layers together. This is by far the most common method for speed cubing. It's basically like the beginner's method for solving 4x4. You just reduce it into a scrambled 3x3 and then solve it like a 3x3. But there are more advanced methods like Hoya and Yao. There's even some ZZ methods for 4x4, and of course there's Mayer method or Lewis method for Roux, which I have a tutorial on. But these are standard reduction methods, and of course, there are alternatives. First off, let's talk about 4x4x4 to 2x2x2 reduction. Now, when I was scrounging the internet for research on this topic, I saw a lot of people posting and claiming that the method was terrible. And if you've ever found one of the most popular YouTubers, JPerm, you probably saw his video on 4x4 to 2x2 reduction, where he talked about how it was bad and gonna be annoying the whole time. And this sets a precedent in the cubing community that I don't really like. See, because no one is trying this for themselves, everyone's just watching like JPerm's video on it and being like, oh, yep, it's bad. But did you know that someone on YouTube called Plus2 has a 1 minute and 7 second single with 4x4 to 2x2 reduction methods? Now you might say, oh, that's terrible, the world record is like 18 seconds or something for 4x4. But to me, that's pretty incredible because I average 1 minute and 10 seconds, and my PB is just 59 seconds, so it's pretty much about where I average. And keep in mind that the guy, Plus2, who is doing this method, doesn't know full EG for 2x2, so the world record can be improved even more, and he doesn't know all the algorithms for reducing the last 2 corners, which haven't all been generated yet. Just think of how much faster it can be if we had all those algorithms. I'm guessing it could probably go down to even 40 seconds. So Plus2 used a very different method than what was shown in JPerm's video. JPerm just did basically 3-dimensional block building and then used commutators to build the last 4 corners, which is very bad, and there are better intuitive ways to do it. So let's look into the method that Plus2 uses to reduce a 4x4 into a 2x2 called the 2-step method. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do in order to reduce a 4x4 to a 2x2 in the 2-step method is we're going to build blocks of 3 edges attached to a corner piece, but we don't care about the center. So we're going to build the 2x2 corner skeletons. I like to call them skeletons. So this piece does not go there because you can't rotate a wing in place. So then it has to be this piece, so we can pair these up and then go like that to pair those up. Now you can build 4 more of those blocks intuitively. So I can pair up this yellow-green with this yellow-green, just like that. And I'll put that back there. Then we need the green-red to go down here, but it's not this one. It's going to be this one. And then we just need the red-yellow, which is going to be this one, so we can do something like that. And that is the first two corner skeletons done. Now to do the last four, we're gonna make use of only one simple algorithm that most cubers know, and it is the T-perm, and it goes like this. So we're going to use that algorithm except with wide R moves, and that is going to swap these two wing pieces. So now we can use 2x2 moves to set up swaps. So this will go there. So if we put this right here, then we can just check like that. So to swap these two, we hold them on the side, and then we do the T-perm algorithm with wide R moves like this. And as you can see, that solves that. So that's an easy, simple way to do it one at a time. So let's see, I can swap these two right here to solve this one. So we'll do it again from this angle right here. And then once more from this angle to solve this white and red, just like this. You can also use J-perm algorithm if you want. And for the last two corners, you don't want to solve one and then the other, because then you won't have any spots to swap to. So you kind of just can use this spot as a keyhole to solve this corner. So let's see, we don't actually want to solve this white and green, because if we do that, the white and green spot's here, then this blue-red will come here and solve this corner. So I'm actually just going to swap first. And then we have white and orange, so we can set up the white and orange spot to there. And now we do the swap. And then the keyhole is now over here, and we have this piece. So then we do the swap again, just like that. And then our final two pieces, we set up with 2x2 moves, and this is the last swap. So you only have to know one algorithm for that. You don't need to use any horrible commutators or anything. And then this part is my favorite step on 4x4. It's the center swapping step. So instead of doing horrible commutators to swap the centers, you can do something a little bit more fun. Look what happens to the logo on my cube here when I do this algorithm. So right now it's facing this way. And now it's facing the other way. So it rotates the center by 180 degrees. And we can just check to make sure this works on big cubes too. So let's just go like this and then that. And let's rotate this center using the same algorithm, R prime U times 5. And would you look at that? These orange pieces were over here, these green pieces were up there, and these white pieces were over there. So it perfectly rotates all center pieces 180 degrees. So using this information, we can find opposite centers that need to be swapped. So here we have an orange trapped in a red corner, and a red trapped in an orange corner. So we set these up to be opposite. Then we try and find another, I call this a perfect swap when both swap and get solved. And we do have another one. We have a white and a green in a white. So let's put those in there, just like this, using 2x2 setup moves. And now when we do the algorithm, these four pieces will solve. And as you can see, that works. So you just keep upsetting intuitive swaps like that. And right here, I'm on the final swap. I just have a white and a blue and a white. So I'm going to set these up, but to only swap two, you have to make sure that these two are the same color so that when they do switch, it looks like nothing will have happened. But anyway, here's the final swap. So there's the algorithm done, and that's 2x2 reduction complete. You only need to learn two algorithms, no commutators, and it's super fun. But now we can just solve this like a 2x2, so I'll make the yellow layer here, and then we just have this case, right? Yeah, there we go. So that's 4x4 to 2x2 reduction using the two-step method, except the two-step method has more advanced algorithms for solving the last two corners and uses different center algorithms and techniques. But this is basically just a beginner's variant of it that is super helpful for learning 4x4 to 2x2 reduction. But that's not where this ends. We can generalize this concept to any size big cube. So as you can see here, I've made the corner skeletons on my 5x5 here, and now we just need to find perfect swaps. So here's an orange and a yellow and a yellow and an orange. Then I'll try and find another one. All right, so here's two perfect swaps. So we have orange and a yellow, yellow and an orange, red and a blue, blue and a red, opposite of each other like this. But that's not all, because if we just solve this, then we'll be left with weird outer edges. And because we're pairing blocks of 2, we also need to pair blocks of 2 here. So the way that we do this is we set up edge swaps here instead of corner center swaps. So for example, here I have a green in a red, and here I have a red in a green. So we're gonna put this opposite of it like that. That way, when we do the center swapping algorithm, the corners will swap and also these edges will swap, which solves both of these. Now, I'm not quite done because I still have to do this direction. So if we can find a green and a blue, that would be amazing. It doesn't look like there is one though, and there's not always going to be perfect swaps. So I'll just put this empty blue one in so that this blue will go to that spot when it becomes solved, just like this. And this is our first swap, so now let's do the algorithm. And there we go. So we're starting to pair up these edges too. And once we complete this, oh yeah, by the way, if you're still in the middle of reducing all the edges, but you have completely solved the corners, all you're gonna want to do is make all the corners the same color. And that way when you swap, nothing will happen because they're the same color. So let's see, so I can put this one in here like that. And then what other ones are just unsolved? Looks like just this one. So we're gonna have to make this one the same color also, so we can either do blue or orange, and I'm seeing orange more. So then we do this swap, and that will solve white. And then we're going to put the other edge, which was here, in this spot. And now when we swap, these oranges are the same color, so they will do the same thing, that'll do the same thing, that'll do the same thing, and then this will be the last swap. And now we've reduced a 5x5 into a big 3x3. So this is just looks pretty awesome. I love doing this. This is just so fun. And then you can just solve this big 3x3 using any method you want. Oh, it's amazing. And there we go. That was the 5x5 to big 3x3. And this extends infinitely to any puzzle. And we're gonna call this n-2 reduction. So it's going to solve a 5x5 into a big 3x3, and it's always going to reduce the outer 2 layers and combine them. So it's happened with the edges and it happened with the corners too. And if we did this on a 6x6, it would happen with the corners and also these wing pieces, which would reduce the 6x6 into a 4x4. So it would look like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, because we're going to combine the outer 2 layers. So that is the technique of n-2 reduction. Now you may have also seen J-Perm's 6x6 to big 3x3 reduction video, and in this video he actually does 6x6 to 5x5 reduction without realizing it. How is this even possible? How does he not even realize? But yeah, he basically paired up the 2x2 blocks of centers in the 6x6 and then the outer wing edges into pairs of 2, which reduces the 6x6 into a 5x5. And then he solved that 5x5 into a big 3x3 using a different method other than n-2 reduction. So I don't know how he thinks of these crazy things, but he did. So let's go look at that technique and see what we can do with it. Alright, so this technique we're going to call even -1 reduction because it actually only works on even cubes because we're grouping middle layers, sort of like this. So on the 4x4, it's going to look like this, and it's actually the same exact reduction method as normal. So if you do this method on 4x4, it's the exact same as reduction. So you can think about this as grouping all the centers to reduce the centers to be a single center, because odd cubes have a center in the center, but even cubes have 4 centers in the center. So we're going to be solving the centers and then pairing up little edges. And on this, it's going to be almost the same. We're going to solve little 2x2 centers like this and pair up little edges, except we also have to pair up these little things, and that extends infinitely to like even a 12x12. So to reduce a 12x12 into an 11x11, you'll have to pair up these and then 2 more bars until you get to the outside. I don't even know why I'm gonna show you guys this on a 4x4, but I am. So we're just gonna solve centers here just like normal 4x4, and you do have to memorize the color scheme of a puzzle for this because otherwise there's just like no way to tell what it is. But basically like this, you solve the centers, and now you pair up groups of 2 edges, but on a 4x4 there only is 2 edges. So let's see, so this one and this one, you can pair these up by like this, inserting random piece like that, basic beginner reduction method sort of thing. So we'll just keep on doing this until it is good. And then just like that, at the very end, the reduction is complete. So it combined this center and all the little edges, and it reduced it by 1. So now this is just a 3x3, and enjoy your solve like a 3x3 except for, oh god, the parity. Yes, there is still parity. Because we've just reduced this one down from an even layered cube, you will always find parity here. So actually I haven't mentioned this before, but reducing big cubes to, or even layered big cubes to other smaller even layered big cubes until you get to 2x2 is the only way to like avoid parity. Alright, now let's check out what JPerm did in his 6x6 to big 3x3 video, but we're just gonna do the first part where he actually reduces it into a 5x5 without noticing. Alright, so here we have the scrambled 6x6. We're gonna do the same exact thing that we did on the 4x4, where we're gonna build little 2 centers, except on the 4x4 that was all the centers, but here it's not all the centers. But now before we can pair up groups of 2 edges, we need to pair up groups of little wing pieces. And this actually works almost the exact same way. So you set these up like here and here, then you can just slice over and then replace it with any garbage one and go back, and that'll solve that. So it works the exact same way as 4x4 edge pairing. Let's do these orange ones here. So we'll slice over, replace it with like this, and we'll slice back. And here we have the final pair, so we're going to slice this and we're going to replace this with a blue one, which is right there, so that when it comes back, it will solve all the little pieces. So that was pretty much the same exact thing as edge pairing on the 4x4, but now we just have to do it again for these little groups of 2, so this one's already complete. If we go like this, then these red ones are going to be opposite here, and then you're just going to slice over, and then replace it with like another edge, then just slice back, and that's not going to ruin any of the little centers. So it's pretty much the same exact technique used on 4x4 reduction, so we can do these 2 like this, slice, replace with this one maybe, undo. And here we have the last 2, so it's literally the exact same as 4x4, you set them up into this, slice, flip, slice, and there we go. That is 6x6 to 5x5 reduction complete. The exact same way as you do 4x4, you just pair up little slices of 2, and as you can see, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that was 6x6 to 5x5 reduction. Then after JPerm did this, he used a weird commutator way to reduce that into the 3x3, but you can just use n-2 reduction, like we discovered earlier, to reduce this into a 5x5. So again, this is infinitely extendable. You can do 8x8 to 7x7 reduction. First you have to solve these, and then you solve little bars of 2 around it, but then you have another layer of bars of 2 around it, then finally you get to the edges of 2. So you can reduce 8x8 into 7x7. But there's more ways to reduce things in general. You can have things like 6x6 to 4x4 reduction in many different ways. You can even have 8x8 to 7x7 reduction, and there's even a method to go straight from 8x8 to 5x5 reduction. So we definitely need some sort of naming scheme for all of these different methods in order to not confuse them with each other. Because if I say 8x8 to 4x4 reduction, you might ask, well, which way? Sure, you can split up all the layers into 2, but you can also do groups of 3 and then smaller ones to do 8x8 to 4x4 reduction. So the naming scheme that I came up with is you have the puzzle you're reducing it into, and which layers of the first puzzle you're combining. And the numbers of the layers are kind of just vertical slices like this, and they go from left to right. So layer 1, layer 2, 3, 4, 5. So for 5x5 to big 3x3 reduction like this, the notation would be 5x5, arrow, 3x3, and then in the parentheses, we're gonna do 1 plus 2, and we don't really need to say 4 plus 5, because if we're doing 1 plus 2, all reduction has to be symmetrical, which means 1 plus 2 on the other side is just 4 plus 5, but you can say it for completeness if you want. And this naming scheme will allow us to avoid ambiguity and confusion, and you can even have compound reduction with like extra parentheses, and it just looks super insane. So I was talking to some people in the Hypercubers Discord server. That's right, you can join in the description. There's a Discord server for 4-dimensional Rubik's Cubers. But basically, I was talking to those people about different big cube reduction methods, and then We sort of came up with this technique on accident, and I'm gonna call it fragmented reduction, and it's the most craziest thing. Fragmented reduction is basically when you're combining layers, you just have to do it symmetrically, which means you don't have to do them next to each other. As long as it's symmetric, no matter which way you rotate the cube, it technically works. And this is really cursed and kind of disturbs me for some reason, but I'll go show you how it works now. Basically, what we've been doing so far is combining layers that are next to each other symmetrically like this, but there's another way to put layers next to each other symmetrically. For example, you can put these two together and these two together, and these two will end up being the same. So in a way, this can kind of be like the M slice, because these always have to turn together because they're the same. So let's see what happens if I do a big T-perm sort of like this, except only with these two layers. And spoiler alert, it does work, but it just looks horribly cursed. R prime and F prime. And at first glance you may be like, what the heck is this? Well, this has actually worked, and this is fragmented reduction. What I've done is essentially this, except the M slice is just like in between the pieces over here, and it fully works because it's symmetrical and it doesn't mess this up at all. So this side over here, the M slice is just both of these, like they're not two separate layers, these are the same layer. We're treating them as the same exact layer. They're just fragmented, which is why I call it fragmented technique. This red stickers of this corner have also become fragmented, and there's now this new thing in between them, and it just looks incredibly cursed. It's pretty difficult to recognize, and I haven't done a solve of this yet, so I haven't like reduced it into a cursed fragmented 3x3, but maybe one day I'll try it, but it just seems like way out of my grasp just because of how cursed it is. But it doesn't stop there, because you can combine even more cursed amounts of layers. If you combine this layer and maybe these two inner layers, then you can also combine like this layer and these two inner layers, and then and then via symmetry, that would mean that these two layers are connected. So this is a way to reduce it into a 3x3, but cursed and fragmented. So this is kind of maybe like the R layer, this is L, and then M is just out here. So we have most of the L and R layers inside of the M layer, just incredibly cursed. That's fragmented reduction. If anyone wants to try that, let me know. It's just, oh my god, if anyone tries this, that would be amazing. And then finally, to end off this video, we have the craziest thing for last. We're gonna have 3x3 to 2x2 reduction, which should be impossible because there's no way to group the layers like that without destroying what you've already built. But I found a way to make it work with a 4-dimensional Rubik's Cube solving technique called RKT. And at the very bottom of the iceberg, I have saved what I thought is the best or craziest for last, and is actual 3x3 to 2x2 reduction using a 4-dimensional Rubik's Cube technique. Well, actually, this technically isn't actually like legit reduction, but it simulates 3x3 to 2x2 reduction. So yeah, so we're going to solve all the edges. I guess I just made a yellow cross here, and this is like, oh yeah, well, in order to reduce to a 2x2, which is just corner pieces, obviously we have to solve all the edge pieces. So that's exactly what we're gonna do. You can use any method you want for this. I'll just do a U-perm, the other U-perm. There we go. So we have solved all of the edges. Now you pretend that the edges just don't exist, and you inspect the puzzle as if you were looking to solve the corners. So I use PBL, so I see that there's 3 white corners here, and this white corner here. And the basic idea, so this is basically a 4-dimensional 2x2x2x2 Rubik's Cube. If you haven't seen my video on it, go check it out. But basically, if you solve one side of a 2x2x2x2, which is a 2x2x2 cube like this, you'll be left with permuting the last side, which is similar to PLL, except the PLL is like 3-dimensional like this. But the thing about the 2x2x2x2 Rubik's Cube is that each twist rotates 8 corners, because on a 2x2, when you turn it, it turns half the puzzle. And because there's 16 corners in a tesseract, each turn turns 8 of the corners, which means that this is not a legal move. So that's only rotating around 4 corners instead of half of the puzzle, which would be 8. So this is an illegal move. So you may be wondering, well, if those are illegal moves, how am I supposed to do something like this to solve this soon case? Well, basically, you can think of this inner side as a side and rotate 8 corners like this. Oh, Jesus Christ. So these inside 8 corners is actually a valid side. So to turn them, we can kind of go like that and imagine that's kind of like a weird M move. And that does an R move on this cube, but we can't just do a U move. So instead, we rotate this left side here so that the U layer is on the R, and that'll allow us to do another one of these moves, which does a U move, because now the U layer is in there. Then we rotate back, and we see that RU has been done on this. Now you may notice that this layer got messed up, but that'll either fix itself by the end, or you can have parity, which I'll talk about later. So we just need to do a U like that. And yeah, so we basically use rotations and R moves to solve the corners. But how does that relate to solving the 3x3 into a 2x2 using 3x3 to 2x2 reduction? Well, we can do R moves, but now we can't do any other moves without messing up the thing. So we're gonna just use R moves so that it messes up as few edges as possible. So to insert this corner, I would do something like this, where I do R2U, R2, U prime, R2. So we're gonna do R2, then we're going to perform an algorithm that'll rotate all the corners relative to the edges like a Z rotation, which will allow us to put the U layer on the R layer, so we can do an R which will actually be like a U. So the algorithm to do a Z rotation to the corners is like this. And now those 3 white corners that were on the bottom went over there, so it did a Z rotation, but just to the corners. So we're using a 4-dimensional technique to solve 3x3 to 2x2 reduction, which is pretty insane. So now we're gonna do a U move, but U is on the R now. Then we're gonna do the algorithm for Z prime, which is just the inverse algorithm of the first algorithm that I showed you. And now this corner is gonna be there, and they all moved back. We'll do an R2. We'll do a Z algorithm again to get the U side on the R layer. Then we'll just bring these down like this. So that's like a U prime move, even though it's on the R layer. Then we'll do the algorithm to do a Z prime, which will just be the same as before. Then finally an R2, and you see how the only edges that ever get messed up is the R layer. So we're only doing R moves and those rotation algorithms. So I'd end up doing the algorithm for the H case, and then solving the PBL using the same exact technique, using a rotation algorithm for every turn. So this method actually ends up being like hundreds of moves long if you want to do it correctly like this. So I think the better, more advanced way to do this method would be to solve a whole layer and then use the last 4 corners algorithms in order to permute these. But technically this is like kind of a 4-dimensional way to do 3x3 to 2x2 reduction on a 3x3. Alright guys, thanks so much for joining me on this adventure of exploring the iceberg of big cube reduction methods. If you want to see more videos about different methods, leave a comment, leave a like, drop a subscribe, and tell me what you want to see in the future. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to use discount code Blobinati at thecubicle.com to save 5% off. Join my server, the Hypercubers server. Check everyone out. I love you guys so much. See you guys in the next video.